This one strategy will 10x your home services business. Now, most home service businesses think that growth comes from just getting more leads, but the truth is that most businesses have more than enough leads. They're just not following up nearly enough. And in business, the fortune is in the follow-up because only 3% of any given market is actually ready to make a buying decision right now. The other 97% can be won through a strategic follow-up strategy. Now, in this video, you're going to learn exactly how to follow up so you can make more money from the leads that you already have, that you've already paid for, without having to spend more money on ads to get more leads. You're also going to learn exactly what to say and how to follow up with potential customers who stall or disappear after the first conversation. And I'm going to show you exactly what to do after a potential customer has ghosted you and how to bring these deals back to life without discounts or awkward sales pressure or anything like that. What I teach in this video is going to work for all home service businesses, but obviously different trades may have slightly different nuances. So if you have a question about how anything in this video specifically applies to your business, leave it in the comments below and I will answer it there. The first thing you have to understand is that there are two potential types of customers for most home service businesses. The first type is what I call a crisis buyer. Now, a crisis buyer is usually someone who has something broken and it's usually an emergency to them. So maybe their roof is leaking or their toilet or their sink is overflowing and their house is flooded, right? Or it's the middle of the summer and they don't have air conditioning, or the middle of the winter and their heat went out. And these types of buyers are typically going to be in a crisis and they have a very distinct pattern. They'll typically go to Google and they'll search for plumber or roofer or whatever, and they'll call and call and call until they get somebody on the phone. Now, they're much less sensitive to branding because they have an emergency. It's kind of like they're calling 911. They just want somebody that's going to help them. And they care about more who answers first and who can get there first to get them out of the pain. Now, the stats around crisis buyers are very important to understand. And it's important to understand that 50% of the sales will literally go to the vendor that responds first to an inbound lead. So it's crucial that you're responding to leads as quickly as possible. In fact, they found that responding within 5 minutes makes you up to 100 times more likely to actually get that customer. So your calls should never go to voicemail. You should always have somebody that answers the phone in real time and assures them that help is going to be on the way as quickly as humanly possible. If for some reason the stars align and you do have to send someone to voicemail, which you should never do, by the way, this should be just a fallback backup plan, then you want to make sure that your voicemail has very specific messaging in it. Because typically what's going to happen is they're going to be in an emergency and they're going to hear a voicemail and they're going to hang up immediately. What I like doing is I like putting a very specific time frame that they're going to get a call back. So you can say something like, "Thank you for calling us. Your situation is very important to us. We're on the other line with another customer. Leave your name, information, and what's going on, and we will call you back within 5 minutes." Will you be able to respond within 5 minutes every single time? Probably not. But you have a better chance of, first of all, getting them to stop calling your competitors because now they have an expectation that they're going to get a call back in 5 minutes. And if you can't call them back in 5 minutes, then you apologize for the delay as soon as you call them, but you let them know that you will be able to help them soon. A lot of times certainty is the biggest problem. And when I get somebody's voicemail personally and it says, "Leave a message and I'll call you back," I don't believe that. But if they say your call is important, leave your information and we'll call you back within 5 minutes, I'll probably leave a voicemail. Because your goal is just to get the contact information. Honestly, it shouldn't have gone to voicemail in the first place, and your odds of getting the customer are lower than if you would have answered, but your odds are zero if they don't leave any information. If you at least get their information, you at least have an opportunity to call them back and hopefully get them to convert. Those are your crisis buyers. The biggest thing you have to understand about crisis buyers is that you have to respond quickly. And you have to respond in a way that's going to make them feel like they're going to get out of pain very, very fast. I recently had a shower in my house that was leaking from the second story into the first story. And of course, it happened on a Sunday. It couldn't have happened during business hours. And I literally just called plumber after plumber after plumber after plumber after plumber until I got the first plumber on the phone that said, "Yep, we're on the way." And that's the one that ended up getting the repair. It's all about getting them out of pain. That's the most important thing to a crisis buyer. Now, the second type of buyer, and these are the types of buyers that you're typically going to encounter much more, is what I call the consideration buyer. And the consideration buyer is where nothing's really seriously broken. Maybe something's broken, but it's not an emergency. And they're typically going to be spending time researching and comparing prices and maybe just waiting for the time to be right to make the repair. A lot of times they're going to be watching YouTube videos, they're going to be reading reviews, they're going to be talking to friends and asking who they recommend, different things like that. So consideration buyers have to be handled in a very different way than your crisis buyers, especially once you get that lead. Because the thing you have to understand, like I said before, is only 3% of sales happen on the first contact, the first time they come within your business. Most sales happen within the 5th to 12th touch with your business. Consideration buyers fall into 3 subcategories. The first is the curious buyer. Now, these are people that are pre-contact. They have not contacted your business yet. And these are people that maybe visited your website. Maybe they clicked on an ad and they visited a landing page of yours if you're running ads. Maybe they engaged with a social media video, or they watched you on YouTube, or they watched you on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. And these are very, very important people to follow up with. And I guarantee you, your competition is not following up with these types of people. You're probably not either. The easiest way to follow up with these people is to follow up by showing them more ads. Now, Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram and Google, allow you to run something called remarketing or retargeting ads. And essentially what that allows you to do is put a little piece of code on your website that says, hey, this person was on our site, this person showed interest, show them more ads. And even if you're not running ads to generate cold leads, you should be running remarketing ads for people that visit your website, because it's really not that expensive. I mean, we're talking pennies. And like I said, most sales come within the 5th and the 12th touch. So you want to make sure that you are showing ads and you're showing content to people that showed interest by visiting your website or your landing page or watching your social media videos in the first place. It's very, very easy to do, and it runs on autopilot once it's set up. So absolutely, you should be running both follow-up ads on Google and on Meta. Now, the second type of consideration buyer is the cautious buyer. Now, these are people that made a contact with you. These are people that have submitted a contact form, or maybe they chatted with the chat box on your website. Maybe they called and they had questions, but they didn't book a quote or an estimate, or maybe they did, but they canceled or they ghosted you at the time. So you want to follow up with all of these people on a regular basis, because again, most sales happen after the 5th to 12th touch. So you want to make sure that you're using a system to follow up via phone call, email, and text message. And the reason why is because, first of all, 87% of Americans do not answer phone calls from unknown numbers. That means that really only 13% of people are going to pick up the phone when you call them. However, 90% of text messages are read within 3 minutes of sending them. So if you can text message them as well as call them, and not only that, but also send them an email if you have their email address, now you're reaching them in 3 different ways. And it's very, very important that you do this, because a lot of times you just need to be persistent. So we teach our clients to use a system called 3 times 3 ways. And what that means is that on day 1, you're going to send them a text message, then you're going to give them a phone call, and then you're going to send them an email. And if you still haven't heard back, you're going to send them another text message the next day, and you're going to give them another phone call, and you're going to give them another email. And then on day 3, you're going to give them another text message and another phone call and another email. And this will typically significantly increase the likelihood that you talk to somebody and get them back on the phone after they've already shown a little bit of interest in your business. This is especially important for people that fill out contact forms and send you emails and social media DMs and things like that, because a lot of times we hear that, oh yeah, they contacted me, but then I called them and I couldn't get them on the phone. Well, this is the way to do that. Now, you might be worried that this is too much contact, but the truth is that buyers often expect a minimum of 4 follow-up contacts before a company stops trying to reach them. There's lots of research that confirms this. So people actually expect you to follow up. And remember, they reached out to you. This isn't a cold call. They reached out because they had a problem that you can solve. So you're actually doing them a disservice if you're not following up over and over and over again, because people get busy. And remember, the average sales rep only makes 2 attempts to reach out to a potential customer, which is far below the 5 to 12 touch points that are necessary where most conversions occur. So by using the 3x3 method, you're going to get a lot more people to talk to you, which is going to get more quotes and more estimates. And that's ultimately going to give you more business, just because of the fact that it's the rule of large numbers. You're just going to have more volume. Now, a couple more tips. When you send the text message, make sure that you include your full name. And the reason why is because when you then call later, it will show up as maybe John Smith if somebody has an iPhone. Because one of the biggest challenges is just getting somebody to answer the phone. And people, like I said, don't answer the phone because there's so many robo dials every single day that people just don't trust phone numbers that they don't know. Now, another tip is to stagger your call windows. So if you call in the morning on day one, then call mid-afternoon on day two, and call in the late afternoon on day three. Or you can use what we call the magic hours. Now, the magic hours are when the majority of our clients sign the majority of their clients. And those are between the hours of 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. and over the weekends. They get more people on the phone during these periods. And the reason why is because one, there's not a lot of companies that are calling. And two, most people are able to actually pick up the phone because they're not working and they're actually at home, right? So if you call when people are more available, then you're much more likely to get them on the phone. If you do this, you're going to get a lot more people that you're able to talk to, a lot more swings, and you're going to make a lot more money. Now, the third type of consideration buyer is your committed buyer. Now, these are people that maybe you've already given a quote or an estimate to. Maybe they said not right now, or I need to think about it, or maybe they just ghosted you. But you have to think, if they weren't interested, they wouldn't have asked you for a quote. So what we just need to do is we just need to follow up. But we don't want to do it in a salesy way. We don't want to make them feel like we're desperate, because the rule is that if they feel like we need them, then they automatically feel like they don't need us. It's the standard rule of attraction. But if you can make them feel like you don't need them, then they're going to automatically feel like they need you. Now, there's a couple different ways that I really like doing this. The first way is something that I call by the way marketing. Now, by the way marketing is a very, very simple message that you're going to send them either via text message or email or something like that, where you're going to reach back out to them, but you're not going to use the F word. We hate the F word. The F word is follow up. You're not going to say, hey, just following up, because that reeks of desperation. What you want to do instead is you want to provide additional value. So you're going to say, hey, Steve, it was great meeting you the other day at your home. By the way, I was thinking about this. And then what you want to do is give them a very specific piece of information, a piece of value that's actually going to help them specific to the problem that they said they had and your solution. So you want to just prove you can help them by actually helping them. And the cool thing about by the way marketing is you can do this over and over and over again. I've been doing this for 14 years, and nobody has ever yelled at me for giving too much value, for being too helpful. It just hasn't happened. But the cool thing is this allows you to get another one of those touches. Like I said, we're trying to get 5 to 12 touches at a minimum. And every time you do this by the way marketing, you're getting another touch, but you're not coming off as desperate and you're not coming off as salesy. Now, another thing you can do is you can send them a message with a special that you guys are running, and you can make this special up. Now, very, very important. I do not like dropping my prices. I do not like offering discounts, but what I do like doing is figuring out how can I add value in some way? How can I make the offer that I made them more valuable? What can I add to the offer to sweeten the pot? Because you never want to lower your prices. You just want to increase your value. Now, it's very, very important that you make them some sort of special offer. You say, hey, listen, we're running this special offer right now where if you do this by this day, there has to be a deadline, then you're going to get this extra value. And this works really well because, first of all, it's a better offer. Second of all, there's a deadline, which increases some urgency, which is one of the most important things that you can have in any sales presentation. And the other cool thing is that this evokes their fear of loss. People have a fear of loss. If you give them this extra thing and you say, listen, you're going to lose this thing if you don't take this action by this particular day, then what's going to happen is people are going to be afraid of losing that extra value, and they're much more likely to move forward. This works very, very well. Now, another thing you can do, especially for people that have ghosted you or just kind of gone silent, is you can send what I call a Chris Voss style re-engagement email. Now, Chris Voss is an FBI hostage negotiator. So I learned this from his book, Never Split the Difference. I didn't make this up, but it works very, very well. So all you do is you send them a one-line message, either a text message or an email. The message is, hey, Bill, have you given up on, and then whatever the outcome is that they're looking for. So typically what's going to happen is, for some reason, I don't know why, this works very, very well. I think it's also the fear of loss because they have to admit, oh yes, I've given up on getting that new roof, or I've given up on getting that pool for my family this summer. I've given up on whatever your service happens to be. This will typically get people to respond. Now, if that doesn't work, what I'll typically do is then send what I call the pest email. Now, the pest email is an email where I say, hey, Bill, listen, it's been a while since I've heard from you. I'm going to go ahead and assume that you're not interested. I don't want to be a pest, so I'm not going to reach out again. If I'm wrong, please let me know. Otherwise, I wish you the best of luck in the future, and I will talk to you soon. Now, what this does is this, again, is giving them that feeling that you don't need them, because if they feel like you don't need them, then they automatically feel like they need you. And this is in sales called the push away. We're basically saying, look, I'm not going to reach out to you again. You're obviously not interested in this. I don't need you. And this often will get them to come back because now it feels very final. Again, fear of loss. That works very well. Now, if you don't hear back from the pest email, there's one more email that I like to send, and that's something that I call a didn't hire survey. So what I'll do is I'll typically send another email that says, hey, Bill, it's Andy again. I know you decided not to work with us, but I'd really appreciate it if you would fill out this survey that will help me do my job better. And then you want to include a survey that takes them to either SurveyMonkey or Google Docs. And the questions on the survey can be, were you considering hiring us? Are you still looking for, a plumber or a roofer or whatever it is? What led to your decision to not hire us? Are there any other factors that you feel would have prevented you from getting the outcome that you're looking for? And is there anything else that you would like to know? Now, what this does, first of all, is this gives you an opportunity to reach out to them again one more time after the pest email. And the didn't hire survey will actually bring more people back to life. It's actually pretty crazy. But the other cool thing is that some people will actually fill out the survey and you'll get really, really, really good information that you can use on your future sales calls. So if you do all this and you make follow-up a major part of your company culture in your business, your home services business will skyrocket.